Okay. All right, and actually I hope everybody has been having a happy holiday season. We're going to have a great story, an O. Henry story this evening by, and Neil Osborne will be reading it, but we have two rules that I must repeat every time we share. Please silence your cell phones, and afterwards just raise your hand after the story or stories. Oh, I thought it was Frank. Hi, do come in. And you'll be called on as we have a discussion. And let's have a go around to just get really acquainted.
I'm Kim Calder, Phyllis Carroll, Madeline's Way.
I was only kidding about the refund. Bob's way.
Francesca Thompson, Carol Emerling, Jane Levinson,
Barbara Meyer.
Steve Ellis.
Carlton Bright.
Laura Peterson.
And Neil Osborne.
Okay, welcome everybody. And I see we have some new people, so I'm just going to explain how Stories with Soul works. Each month we have a new chairperson who selects the readers for the month. In December it was Frank Patton who was chairing. Next month it's going to be Jane Levinson. My brain is going. And we have different readers each week to make it a little bit more interesting. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about Neil Osborne because he is a very special person. He does everything. He's a great yachtsman. He was a sailor in his early years and still sails on many small ships and big ships. He does a film festival for us once a month on Friday evenings, and they've been great. And he does all the audiovisual. He does the hosting, the ushering on Sunday for the Sunday services. And he's just very, very special at All Souls. And he's also on the board of directors. So if you have any complaints, get him. Have I left out anything?
No, very complimentary.
Okay, so...
Takes the sermons, doesn't he?
Huh?
You take the sermons.
He tapes the sermons? Yeah. All right, so I think we thanks Emil. Okay, so now it's up to you, Neil.
Okay, tonight we're going to have actually two stories that both by O. Henry, and they're fairly short. The session is officially in session when the Frank and Rose Memorial Light goes on, and there we are. So O. Henry, as most people know, is just one of the greatest storytellers in the English language. He was born on my birthday, actually, in September 11th, 1862. Mine was a little bit after that, but he died in 1910 at the young age of 47. His formal name was William Sidney Porter. He was born in Greensboro, North Carolina. Had a kind of a checkered upbringing and spent time in, for instance, Sheep Ranch in Texas, and came up through. He did 3 years in jail over a little misunderstanding over $1,000 missing from a bank that he worked for. And he got some inspiration when he was in jail. But he moved to 1902. He moved to New York City, and within a period of 8 years, he became the most widely read storyteller in the United States. So the first story is called, and I have to thank Marion Stano for these books that she had. These books have her name plate at the front, Marion J. Stano, June 1953. So she very kindly gifted these books to me. The first story is called What Do You Want? And his stories are also about coincidence and whimsy and fate, and they're all gentle and funny and lovely stories. What do you want? Night had fallen on that great and beautiful city known as Baghdad on the subway, and with the night came the enchanted glamour that belongs not to Arabia alone. In different masquerade, the streets, bazaars, and walled houses of the Occidental city of romance were filled with the same kind of folk that so much interested our interesting old friend, the late Mr. A.H. Rashid. They wore clothes 1100 years nearer to the latest styles than A.H. saw in the old Baghdad, but they were about the same people underneath. With the eye of faith, you could have seen the little hunchback, Sinbad the sailor, Fitbad the tailor, the beautiful Persian, the one-eyed calendars, Ali Baba and the 40 robbers on every block, and the barber and his 6 brothers, and all the old Arabian gang easily. But let us revenue to our lamb chops. Old Tom Crawley was a caliph. He had $42 million in preferred stocks and bonds with solid gold edges. In these times, to be called a caliph, you must have money. The old-style caliph business, as conducted by Mr. Rashid, is not safe. If you hold up a person nowadays in a bazaar, or a Turkish bath, or a side street, and inquire into his private and personal affairs, the police court will get you. Old Tom was tired of clubs, theatres, dinners, friends, music, money, and in fact, everything. Well, that's what makes you a caliph. You must get to despise everything that money can buy, and then you go out and try to want something that you can't pay for. I'll take a little trot around town all by myself, thought old Tom, and try if I can stir up anything new. Let's see, it seems I've read about a king or a Cardiff giant or something in old times who used to go about with false whiskers on, making Persian dates with folks he hadn't been introduced to. That don't listen like a bad idea. I certainly have got a case of the humdrumness and fatigue for the ones that I do know. That old Cardiff used to pick up cases of trouble as he ran upon them and give them gold, sequins I think, and make 'em marry or got 'em good government jobs. Now, I'd like something of that sort. My money is as good as it was. My money is as good as his was, even if the magazines do ask me every month where I got it. Yes. I guess I'll do a little Cardiff business tonight and see how it goes. Plainly dressed, old Tom Crawley left his Madison Avenue palace and walked westward and then south. As he stepped up to the sidewalk, Fate, who holds the ends of the strings in the central offices of all the enchanted cities, pulled a thread, and a young man 20 blocks away looked at a wall clock and then put on his coat. James Turner worked in one of those little hat-cleaning establishments on 6th Avenue in which a fire alarm rings when you push the door open, and where they clean your hat while you wait. 2 days. James stood all day at an electric machine that turned hats around faster than the best brands of champagne ever could have done. Overlooking your mild impertinence and feeling a curiosity about the personal appearance of a stranger, I'll give you a modified description of him. Weight, 118. Complexion, hair and brain, light. Height, 5'6". Age, about 23. Dressed in a $10 suit of greenish blue serge, pockets containing 2 keys, and 63 cents in change. But do not misconjecture, because this description sounds like a general alarm, that James was either lost or a dead one. Allons. James stood all day at his work. His feet were tender and extremely susceptible to impositions being put upon or below them. All day long they burned and smarted, causing him much suffering and inconvenience. But he was earning $12 a week, which he needed to support his feet, whether his feet would support him or not. James Turner had his own conception of what happiness was, just as you and I have ours. Your delight is to gad about the world in yachts and motor cars, and to hurl ducats at wild fowl. Mine is to smoke a pipe at evenfall and watch a badger, a rattlesnake, and an owl go into their common prairie home, one by one. James Turner's idea of bliss was different, but it was his. He would go directly to his boarding house when his day's work was done. After supper of small steak, Bessemer potatoes, stewed, not stewed, apples, and an infusion of chicory, he would ascend to his 5th floor back hall room. Then he would take off his shoes and socks, place the soles of his burning feet against the cold bars of his iron bed, and read Clark Russell's Sea Yarns. The delicious relief of the cool metal applied to his smarting soles was his nightly joy. His favourite novels never palled upon him. The sea and the adventures of its navigators were his sole intellectual passion. No millionaire was ever happier than James Turner taking his ease. When James left the hat cleaning shop, he walked 3 blocks out of his way home to look over the goods of a second-hand bookstall. On the sidewalk stands, he had more than once picked up a paper-covered volume of Clark Russell at half price. When he was bending with a scholarly stoop over the marked-down miscellany of cast-off literature, old Tom, the Caliph, sauntered by. His discerning eye, made keen by 20 years' experience in the manufacture of laundry soap, save the wrappers, recognized instantly the poor and discerning scholar, a worthy object of his caliphanous mood. He descended the 2 shallow stone steps that led from the sidewalk and addressed without hesitation the object of his design munificence. His first words were no worse than salutary and tentative. James Turner looked up coldly, with Sartor Resartus in one hand and a bad marriage in the other. "Beat it," said he. "I don't want to buy any coat hangers or town lots in Hanky-Poo, New Jersey. Run along now and go play with your teddy bear." "Young man," said the Caliph, ignoring the flippancy of the hat cleaner, "I observe that you're of a studious disposition. Learning is one of the finest things in the world. I never had any of it worth mentioning, but I admire so much to see it in others. I come from the West, where we imagine nothing but facts. Maybe I couldn't understand the poetry and allusions in them books you're reading over, but I'd like to see somebody else seem to know what they mean. Now, I'd like to make you a proposition. I'm worth about $40 million. And I'm getting richer every day. I made the height of it manufacturing Aunt Patty's silver soap. I invented the art of making it. I experimented for 3 years before I got just the right quantity of chloride of sodium solution and caustic potash mixture to curdle properly. And after I'd taken out some $9 million out of the soap business, I made the rest in corn and wheat futures. Now, you seem to have the literary and scholarly turn of character, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll pay for your education at the finest college in the world. I'll pay the expense of your rummaging over Europe and the art galleries, and finally set you up in a good business. You don't need to make soap if you've got any objections. I see by your clothes and frazzled necktie that you're mighty poor, and you can't afford to turn down the offer. Well, what do you say? When do you want to begin? The hat cleaner turned upon old Tom the eye of the big city, which is an eye expressive of cold and justifiable suspicion, of judgment suspended as high as Haman was hung, of self-preservation, of challenge, curiosity, defiance, cynicism, and strange as you may think it, of a childlike yearning for friendliness and fellowship that must be hidden when one walks among the stranger band. For in New Baghdad, one, in order to survive, must suspect whoever sits, dwells, drinks, rides, walks, or sleeps in the adjacent chair, house, booth, seat, path, or room. "Say, Mike," said James Turner, "what's your line anyway? Shoelaces? I'm not buying anything. You better put an egg in your shoe and beat it before incidents occur to you. You can't work off any fountain pens, gold spectacles you found on the street, or trust company certificate house clearings of me. Say, do I look as though I climbed down one of them missing fire escapes at Helicon Hall? What's vitiating you anyway?" "Son," said the Caliph, in his most Harunish tones, "as I said, I'm worth $40 million. I don't want to have it put in my coffin when I die. I want to do some good with it. I see you handling over these volumes of literature. I thought, I'd keep you. I've given money to the missionary societies, $2 million. What do I get out of it? Nothing but a receipt from the secretary. Now, you're just the kind of young man I'd like to take up and see what money could make of him." Volumes of Clark Russell were hard to find that evening at the old bookshop, and James Turner's smarting and aching feet didn't tend to improve his temper. Humble hat cleaner though he was, he had a spirit equal to any caliph's. "Say, you old faker," he said angrily, "be on your way. I don't know what your game is. Unless you want to change for a bogus $40 million bill, well, I don't carry that much around with me. But I do carry a pretty fair left-handed punch that you'll get if you don't move on." "You're a blamed impudent little gutter pup," said the Caliph. Then James delivered his self-praised punch. Old Tom seized him by the collar and kicked him thrice. The hat cleaner rallied and clinched. 2 book stands were overturned and the books sent flying. A cop came up, took an arm of each, and marched them to the nearest station house. "Fighting and disorderly conduct," said the cop to the sergeant. $300 bail, said the sergeant at once, asseveringly and inquiringly. 63 cents, said James Turner with a harsh laugh. The Caliph searched his pockets and collected small bills and change, amounting to $4. "I'm worth," he said, $40 million, but lock him up," ordered the sergeant. In his cell, James Turner laid himself on his cot ruminating. Maybe he's got the money. Maybe he ain't. But if he has, or if he ain't, what does he want to go around butting into other folks' business for? When a man knows what he wants and can get it, it's the same as $40 million to me. Then an idea came to him that brought a pleased look to his face. He removed his socks, drew his cot close to the door, stretched himself out luxuriously, and placed his tortured feet against the cold bars of the cell door. Something hard and bulky under the blankets of his cot gave one shoulder discomfort. He reached under and drew out a paper-covered volume by Clark Russell called A Sailor's Sweetheart. He gave a great sigh of contentment. Presently, to his cell, the doorman came and said, "Say, kid, that old gazebo who was pinched with you for scrapping seems to have been the goods, the real goods, after all. He phoned to his friends and he's out of the desk now with a roll of yellow backs as big as a Pullman car pillow. He wants to bail you out and for you to come out and see him." Tell him I ain't in," said James Turner. Story number 1.
Neil, would you like to have the discussion now for this story and another discussion?
Read the other story now.
All right, then we'll read the other story, and then we'll discuss both of them. Okay.
Second story is about a couple of Irishmen. I think it's really funny. You could be the judge. It's called Tobin's Palm, with the accent. Tobin and me, the two of us, went down to Coney one day, for there was $4 between us, and Tobin had need of distractions. For there was Katie Mahorner, his sweetheart of County Sligo, long since she started for America 3 months before with $200, her own savings, and $100 from the sale of Tobin's inherited estate. A fine cottage and pig in the bog Shannaw. And since the letter that Tobin got saying that she'd start to come to him, not a bit of news had he heard or seen of Katie Mahorner. Tobin advertised in the papers, but nothing could be found of the colleen. So, to Coney, me and Tobin went, thinking that a turn at the shoots and the smell of the popcorn might raise the heart in his bosom. But Tobin was a hard-headed man, and the sadness stuck in his skin. He ground his teeth at the crying balloons, he cursed the moving pictures, and though he could drink whenever asked, he scorned Punch and Judy and was for licking the tin-type men as they came. So I gets him down a sideway in the boardwalk where the attractions were some less violent. At a little 6x8 stall, Tobin halts with a more human look in his eye. "'Tis here," says he, "I'll be diverted. I'll have the palm of me hand investigated by the wonderful palmist of the Nile, and see what is to be will be." Tobin was a believer in signs and the unnatural in nature. He possessed illegal convictions in his mind along the subjects of black cats, lucky numbers, and the weather predictions in the papers. We went into the enchanted chicken coop, which was fixed mysterious with red cloth and pictures of hands with lines crossing them like a railroad centre. The sign over the door says it's Madame Zozo, the Egyptian palmist. There was a fat woman inside in a red jumper with pothooks and beasties embroidered on it. Tobin gives her 10 cents and extends one of his hands. She lifts Tobin's hand, which is its own brother to the hoof of a dray horse, and examines it to see whether it's a stone in the frog or a cast shoe he's come for. "Man," says this Madame Zozo, "this line of your fate shows—" "It's not me fate at all," says Tobin, interrupting. "Sure, 'tis no beauty, but you hold the palm of me hand." "The line shows," said the madam, "that you've not arrived at your time of life without bad luck. And there's more to come. The Mount of Venus, or is that a stone bruise, shows you've been in love. There's been trouble in your life on account of your sweetheart." "'Tis Katie Mahorner she's references with," whispers Tobin to me in a loud voice at one side. "I see," said the palmist, "a great deal of sorrow and tribulation with one whom you cannot forget. I see the lines of designation point to the letter K and the letter M in her name." "Whist," says Tobin to me, "d'ye hear that?" "Look out," goes on the palmist, "for a dark man and a light woman, for they'll both bring you trouble. You'll make a voyage upon the water very soon, and you'll have a financial loss. I see one line that brings good luck. The one line. There's a man coming into your life who will fetch you good fortune. You'll know him, when you see him, by his crooked nose." "Is his name set down?" asks Tobin. "Will be convenient in the way of greeting when he backs up the dump half the good luck." "His name," said the palmist, thoughtful looking, "is not spelled out by the lines, but they indicate it's a long one, and the letter O should be in it." "There's no more to tell. Good evening. Don't block the door." "Oh, 'tis wonderful how she knows," says Tobin as we walk to the pier. As we squeezed through the gates, a nigger man sticks his lighted cigar against Tobin's ear. And there's trouble. Tobin hammers his neck and the women squeal, and by the presence of mind I drag the little man out of the way before the police comes. Tobin is always in an ugly mood when he's enjoying himself. On the boat going back, when the man calls, "Who wants the good-looking waiter?" Tobin tried to plead guilty, feeling the desire to blow the foam off a crock of suds. But when he felt in his pocket, he found himself discharged for the lack of evidence. Somebody had disturbed his change during the commotion. So he sat dry upon the stools, listening to the Dagos fiddling on deck. If anything, Tobin was lower in spirits and less congenial with his misfortune than when we started. On a seat against the railing was a young woman dressed suitable for red automobiles, with hair the colour of an unsmoked meerschaum. In passing by, Tobin kicks her foot without intentions, and being polite to ladies when in drink, he gives his hat a twist while apologising, but he knocks it off and the wind carries it overboard. Tobin came back and sat down, and I began to look out for him because the man's adversities were becoming frequent. He was apt, when pushed so close by hard luck, to kick the best-dressed man he could see and to try and take command of the boat. Presently, Tobin grabs my arm and says, excited, "John," says he, "do you know what we're doing? Do you know what we're doing? We're taking a voyage upon the water." "There now," says I, "subdue yourself. The boat will land in 10 minutes more. Look," says he, "at the light lady on the bench. And have you forgotten the nigger man that burned my ear? And isn't the money I had gone? The whole $1.65 it was." I thought he was no more than summing up his catastrophes so as to get violent with good excuse, as men will do. And I tried to make him understand such things they're just trifles. "Listen," says Tobin, "you've no ear for the gift of prophecy and the miracles of the inspired. What did the psalmist lady tell you out of me hand? It's coming true right before your eyes. Look out," he says, "for a dark man and a light woman. They'll bring you trouble. Have you forgot the nigger man and got some of it back from me first? Can you show me a lighter woman than the blonde lady who was the cause of me hat falling in the water? And where's the $1.65 I had in my vest? We left the shooting gallery." The way Tobin put it did seem to corroborate the arch prediction, although it looked to me that these accidents could happen to anyone at Coney without the implication of palmistry. Tobin got up and walked around on the deck, looking close at the passengers out of his little red eyes. I asked him the interpretation of his movements. You never know with Tobin. You never know what he has in his mind until he begins to carry it out. "You should know," says he, "I'm working out the salvation promised by the lines in me palm. I'm looking for the crooked-nosed man that's to bring the good luck. It's all that's going to save us, John. Do you ever see a straighter-nosed gang of hellions in the days of your life?" It was the 9:30 boat, and we landed and walked uptown through 22nd Street, Tobin being without his hat. On a street corner, standing under a gaslight and looking over the elevated road at the moon, was a man. A long man he was, dressed decent, with a cigar between his teeth, and I saw that his nose made 2 twists from bridge to end, like the wriggle of a snake. Tobin saw it at the same time, and I heard him breathe hard, like a horse when you take the saddle off. He went straight up to the man, and I went with him. "Good night to you," Tobin says to the man. The man takes out a cigar and passes the compliment sociable. "Would you hand us your name?" asked Tobin. "Let us look at the size of it. It may be our duty to become acquainted with you." "My name," said the man, polite, "is Friedenhausman, Maximus G. Friedenhausman." "Oh, 'tis the right length then," says Tobin. "Do you spell it with an O anywhere down the stretch of it?" "I do not," says the man. "Can you spell it with an O?" inquires Tobin, turning anxious. "If your conscience," says the man with the nose, "is indisposed towards foreign idioms, you might, to please yourself, smuggle the letter into the penultimate syllable." "Oh, it is well," says Tobin. "You're in the presence of John Malone and Daniel Tobin." "Oh, it is highly appreciated," said the man with a bow. "And now, since I cannot conceive that you'd be out holding a spelling bee upon the street, will you name some reasonable excuse for being at large?" "By the 2 signs," answers Tobin, trying to explain, "which you display according to the reading of the Egyptian palmist from the sole of my hand, you've been nominated to offset, with good luck, the lines of trouble leading to the nigger man and the blonde lady with the feet crossed on the boat, besides the financial loss of $1.65, all so far fulfilled according to Hoyle. The man stopped smoking and looked at me. Have you any amendments, he asked, after that statement? Are you the one? You one too? I thought by the looks of him that you'd have to be in charge. None, says I, except as one horseshoe resembles another, so are you the picture of good luck as predicted by the hand of my friend. If not, then the lines of Danny's hand may have been crossed. I don't know. There's two of you, said the man, with the nose looking up and down for the sight of a policeman. I've enjoyed your company immense. Good night. With that, he shoves his cigar in his mouth and moves across the street, stepping fast. But Tobin sticks close to him on one side, me on the other. What, says he, stopping on the opposite sidewalk and pushing back his hat. Why do you follow me? I tell you, he says very loud, I'm proud to have met you, but it is my desire to be rid of you. I'm off to me home. Do, said Tobin, leaning against his sleeve, do be off to your home, and I will sit at the door of it until you come out in the morning, for dependence upon ye is to obviate the curse of the nigger man and the blonde lady and the financial loss of the $1.65. Oh, 'tis a strange hallucination, says the man, turning to me as a more reasonable lunatic. Hadn't you better take him home? Listen, man, says I to him, Daniel Tobin is as sensible as he ever was. Maybe he's a bit deranged on account of having drink enough to disturb, but not enough to settle his wits. But he's no more than following out the legitimate path of his superstitions and predicaments, which I will explain to you. With that, I relates the facts about the palmist lady and how the finger of suspicion points to him as an instrument of good fortune. Now, understand, I concludes, my position in this riot. I'm the friend of me friend Tobin. According to me interpretations, it's easy to be a friend to the prosperous, for it pays. 'Tis not hard to be a friend to the poor, for you get puffed up by gratitude and have your picture printed standing in front of a tenement with a scuttle of coal and an orphan in each hand. But it strains the art of friendship. It strains the art of friendship to be a true friend to a born foe. And that's what I'm doing, says I. For in my opinion, there's no fortune to be read from the palm of your hand that wasn't printed there with a pick of a handle of a pick. And though you've got the crookedest nose in New York City, I misdoubt that all the fortune tellers doing business could milk good luck from you. But the lines of Danny's hand pointed you fair, and I'll assist him to experiment with you until he's convinced you're dry. After that, the man turns sudden to laughing. He leans against a corner and laughs considerable. Then he claps me and Tobin in the backs of us and takes us by an arm apiece. It's my mistake, he says. How could I be expecting anything so fine and wonderful to be turning the corner upon me? I came near to being found unworthy. Hard by, he says, he is a cafe, snug and suitable for the entertainment of idiosyncrasies. Let's go there and have a drink while we discuss the unavailability of the categorical. So saying, he marched me and Tobin to the back room of a saloon and ordered the drinks and laid money on the table. He looks at me and Tobin like brothers of his, and we have the cigars. You must know, says the man of destiny, that me walk in life is one that is called the literary. I wander abroad by night, seeking idiosyncrasies in the masses and truth in the heavens above. When you came upon me, I was in contemplation of the elevated road, in conjunction with the chief luminary of night. The rapid transit is poetry and art, the moon but a tedious dry body moving by road. But these are private opinions, for in the business of literature the conditions are reversed. 'Tis me hope to be writing a book to explain the strange things I've discovered in life. Oh, you put me in a book, says Tobin, disgusted. You put me in a book. I will not, said the man, for the covers will not hold you. Not yet. The best that I can do is to enjoy you myself, for the time is not ripe for destroying the limitations of print. You'd look fantastic in type, all alone by myself. I must drink this cup of joy. But I thank you, boys. I'm Truly, truly grateful. The talk of you, says Tobin, blowing through his moustache and pounding the table with his fist, is an eyesore to me patience. There was good luck promised out the crook of your nose, but you bear fruit like the bang of a drum. You resemble, with your noise of books and just like the wind blowing through a crack. Sure now, I'd be thinking of the palm of me hand lied, but for the coming true of the nigger man and the blonde lady and wish, the long man. Would you be led astray by physiognomy? Me nose will do what it can within bounds. Let's have these glasses filled again, for it's good to keep idiosyncrasies well moistened. They're being subject to deterioration in a dry, moral atmosphere. So the man of literature makes good to my notion, for he pays cheerful for everything, the capital of me and Tobin being exhausted by prediction. But Tobin is sore and drinks quiet with a red showing in his eye. By and by we move out, because it was 11 o'clock and stands a bit upon the sidewalk. Then the man says he must be going home and invites me and Tobin to walk in that direction. We arrives on a side street 2 blocks away where there's a stretch of brick houses with high stoops and iron fences. The man stops at one of them and looks up at the top windows, which he finds dark. "'Tis me humble dwelling," says he, "and I begin to perceive by the signs that my wife has retired to slumber. Therefore, I will venture a bit in the way of hospitality. 'Tis me wish that ye enter the basement room where we dine, and partake of reasonable refreshments. There will be some fine cold fowl and cheese and a bottle or 2 of ale. You'll be welcome to enter and eat, for I am indebted to your diversions." The appetite and conscience of me and Tobin was congenial to the proposition, though it was sticking hard in Danny's superstitions to think that a few drinks and a cold lunch should represent the good fortune promised by the palm of his hand. "Step down the steps," says the man with the crooked nose, "and I will enter by the door above, and I'll let you in. I'll ask the new girl we have in the kitchen," says he, "to make you a pot of coffee to drink before you go." "'Tis fine coffee Katie Mahorner makes for a green girl just landed 3 months. Step in," says the man, "and I'll send her down to you."
Well, okay, at this time, we can have a discussion about either story, and let's hear it.
I just love his language. You think it's exactly 100 years ago, the early part of the 1900s. It's just wonderful.
Jane?
Well, the last one had a punchline, of course, and a surprise, and so that was delightful. But I like the first story more in terms of its richness in general. And that, I mean, you've given us a few now in the holiday seasons of certainly no Henrys with richnesses and different cadences in people's lives. And just here, sometimes we have the person who has the beneficence that doesn't work. O. Henry gets it in so many ways, and this was just totally new and different and very simply. One person's desire to be a big help. I mean, I'll take his 40 million. He can send me off to go study something, and I don't have to bother paying for it, and it could be a lovely educational little tittle-diddle anywhere I'd like. But people don't always want to have what you think they want to have. And I thought it was charming how he liked his feet up on the bed, and it turned out when he got the book that was just the kind of book he liked. Well, there he was, and well, maybe it was jail to somebody else, but wasn't it the comfy old bed? I mean, the iron piece, you stick your hot feet up on this cold thing, and
It was different from his apartment, you know. It was just,
I mean, it was the same old thing, and it was what he found his joy. And I thought there was some wonderful little treasures in there.
I think it's what somebody terms his happiness, the peak experience. And it's made up of what to anybody else would seem just trifles. And there's a complement to that, what someone prizes. Some authors have touched on that and shown what's in a man's last effects and what he thought was most dear. And it could be the slightest thing in a shoebox, a little ribbon, a photograph, perhaps a souvenir from a place that he has been. But this is something that's prized greatly. And I think O. Henry, and he's very well known for that short story with the lock of hair and the gift, the Magi, the gift of the Magi. And this again touches on a like theme. Very wise man.
As there are natural disasters and hurricanes, and people have their TVs and their VCRs and all their accoutrements, but you find what most people value are their family photographs.
Oh,
That's what gets saved. People rush in and save their family photographs.
Yeah, one I call on me. I thought the first story could have been about today in New York City. It was so timely in the sense that here was somebody who was a salesman and was standing on his feet all day long and quite content in a way, but suspicious of somebody coming into the store and saying, I'm going to give you money. I mean, I would be suspicious too. So even though it took place 100 years ago, it certainly could have taken place yesterday, and I just thought it was a timely New York story where perhaps strangers are looked upon with great suspicion, even though people are very open easily with strangers. So I thought I enjoyed that one immensely, and he just wanted to be content reading his book with his feet against the cold bars of the jail.
Yeah, I like he fixed him with the eye of the big city in capital letters actually. The big city, which is all this sort of suspicion, but at the same time there's a sort of willingness to accept at the same time. All these, it was a multifaceted look that a city dweller gives somebody else who just approaches them out of the blue like that. You want to respond, but at the same time, you've got your guard up.
Question, Neil. Have any idea of what O. Henry's education was, or
He didn't have very much formal education. His aunt ran a school, private school, so she encouraged his reading and storytelling. But he left school at a young age, and he was just naturally gifted, I think.
Where was the aunt living?
In Texas, I think. I'll tell you. Well, Greensboro, North Carolina. And in later life signed himself as Sidney Porter. His education stopped at 15, but his aunt, who had a private school, stimulated his reading and storytelling. I assume that's in and around Greensboro, North Carolina. And then he went, his mother died of tuberculosis when he was 3. He was a pale, anemic lad, and then he went to a sheep ranch in Texas. He became acquainted with cowboys, heard about desperados and cattle thieves. 2 years later, in 1884, he went to Austin. He worked in a real estate office, he sang in a church choir, and 4 years was occupied as a draftsman in the general land office. He liked to draw, and his associates thought Bill Porter had the makings of a caricaturist. He got this. He married a woman whose parents had died of tuberculosis, and not long after that, she met the same fate a number of years later. They had a firstborn that died. But the second child, Margaret, grew to maturity and survived her father. He tried to start a small humorous magazine, got a job as a teller in a bank. The biographer said it was an astonishing bank run with astonishing laxity. When irregularities were found in Porter's accounts, a shortage of less than $1,000, he lost his job with the bank and went to Houston. He worked for a newspaper in Houston. And then a few years later, they must have been on his trail or something, the federal authorities ordered him to stand trial, he left New Orleans for Honduras. Career opportunity in Honduras. A little over 2 years later, the illness of his wife called him back to Austin, and he faced federal prosecution. His flight to Honduras counted heavily against him. Although he lived in Austin for nearly a year before he was tried, he was found guilty and served a few months over 3 years in the Columbus, Ohio penitentiary. In the prison, he worked as a drug clerk, had considerable freedom of movement, and could even walk about the city. He started writing some more in jail. Then he came to New York.
Oh, sorry.
Kim?
It sounds like the phrase, the guy could talk his way out of Fort Knox.
Yeah.
I just get this picture. I didn't imagine that he would have had that kind of a personal history. I would have thought he was from, I don't know, and I didn't know that he was a fictitious name. How we got the cadences of this Irish New York thing going on, which you did beautifully. I thought that was tremendously fun. That was a wonderful story.
It's interesting here, it says, like Edgar Allan Poe, O. Henry is now one of the legendary characters of New York. He was a kindly, considerate man who liked to walk about the city at night, studying faces and inventing stories about them. I've got some of my best yarns from park benches, lamp posts, and newspaper stands, he said. He fled from publicity and enjoyed most a quiet meal with a friend who knew the value of silence. Robert Davis, the editor who knew him well, said of him, he was a childlike individual, absolutely without guile, and at times utterly helpless. I always had the feeling that had he possessed the slightest powers of resistance, the illness to which he surrendered would have been defeated.
Bob?
Was there any truth that he used to hang out at Pete's Tavern in Gramercy Park?
Quite possibly. I don't know.
And given to a bit of drink?
I think so. He took a little
That's
libation.
what I think.
A little libation. I was trying to figure out what this line reminded me of. Tobin had need of distraction.
Tobin had, well, he had not only was Katie his fiancée, his sweetheart, but she also, in addition to her own savings, she was supposed to be coming across to meet him with $100 of his savings from the sale of his estate, which was a fine cottage and a pig in the Bog Chanel. Sold his pig, and I don't know whether she got across to New York and couldn't find him. But anyway, they met at the end.
So he was successful while he was alive
No, he died in near poverty.
for his whole life. There was no he was
Well,
never.
he he probably, lived reasonably well at one stage, but I don't know for what reason he ended in near poverty.
He was never nationally read and waited for on a weekly basis.
Not really. I think he was known and loved in New York, but I don't think nationally he was a national figure until after his death.
Okay, so we're going to be thanking Neil for the wonderful stories and for his great reading of these stories. And Jane, will you tell us about next Wednesday?
Yes, I'll be your host next month, and our first reader, and it's correct in the bulletin. This is a good month, they got it right. Charlotte Parsons will be back reading for us. And remember, it's January 1st coming up this weekend, and it's winter and all that, and she's reading Jack Frost by Josephine Jacobson. I don't know the story, but I'm looking forward to it. And can we give Rose?
Okay, looking forward to seeing you all next Wednesday, same time, same place.
Thank you, Rose.